For centuries, Europeans had regarded ceramics as implements of daily life. But under the influence of Chinaware, they came to appreciate their striking beauty. In the 17th century, the Dutch East India Company imported porcelainware from China and later from Japan. The people of Europe were enthralled by these magnificent objects. Aristocrats vied with each other to build up collections of expensive Oriental porcelain. This collection at Charlottenburg Castle in Germany is one of the finest. Note the perfect circles, geometrically proportioned shapes, and precisely balanced designs on pure white surfaces. This appealed to contemporary European attitudes towards the arts. Reason, here combined with a fascination for the exotic. The technique of producing hard white porcelain was still unknown in 17th century Europe. But the aristocracy were keen to have this ideal type of porcelain made by their own craftsmen. Augustus I of Saxony had a man working full-time at his castle trying to solve the mystery of Oriental porcelain. Johann Friedrich Böttger was an alchemist and used his skills to analyze the contents of the porcelain. He carried out one experiment after another and came up with the ideal combination of different clays. At long last, he was able to produce a very hard porcelain fired at a high temperature. But the piece was brown, a far cry from the smooth white porcelain of the Orient. But success at last in 1709. Böttger used kaolin and fired the sample at 1,300 degrees centigrade. The result was a pure white urn, just like those from the Orient. European porcelain began as imitations of the Chinese and Japanese, but in time it assumed a character of its own. The culture of the Orient was absorbed and adapted to the taste of the West.
Now, Western civilization was accustomed to thinking of ceramics as decorative articles to be used in everyday life. So, when they first saw pottery from Asia, by that I mean porcelainware from China, they were struck by the sophisticated techniques of the East. Chinese and Japanese porcelain continued to influence Europe throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. But at that time, no one gave a thought to the simple Japanese tea bowl. What was the reason for this? It wasn't because Europeans didn't appreciate the techniques involved. It was more a case of the aesthetics behind the tea ceremony not being understood. In Europe, the strictly regular shape and gorgeous decoration of Oriental porcelainware was easily acceptable, but the unadorned tea bowl was a different matter altogether. Connoisseurs of the simple Japanese tea bowl valued it for both its complexity and its understatement. The aesthetics of the tea ceremony evolved in Japan during the 16th and 17th centuries and were a complete antithesis to what had gone before. Nothing less than a complete revolution.
The setting for the tea ceremony helps us to understand the comment of the 19th century art critic Okakura Tenshin. The tea ceremony is a way of achieving something meaningful in this life, which is full of mysteries. Thus, the tea ceremony is life itself, a way of transforming nature into art. The tea bowl is the ultimate symbol of that spirit. Life or nature is projected into the tea bowl. One sign of this is the name given to each individual tea bowl. Just as each of us is given a name at birth and only has one life to live, so too with the tea bowl. Each bowl has its own name because it has its own unique existence, in this world. Each tea bowl has its own personality. At times, it is intrinsically connected with a person's life. At others, it finds itself at one with nature, the universe in the palm of the hand.
The tea ceremony was much admired by a Western observer.
The guests open the gate, walk along the path through the wood up to the tea house, quietly contemplating everything they see. They remove their fans and daggers and deposit them in a kind of cupboard placed there outside for that purpose.
The tea house was also a retreat where they could replenish their souls.
This gathering for tea and conversation is not intended for lengthy talk, but rather to contemplate within their souls, with all peace and modesty, the things that they see there, and thus, through their own efforts, to understand the mysteries locked therein.
Appreciating the elegant taste of tea. The tea ceremony is an aesthetic cult developed to artistic heights in Japan during the 16th century. The tea is a delicately flavored green tea, peculiar to the Orient. Today, the tea ceremony is known throughout the world as the number of people who delight in taking part in this cult increases. Nodate is an informal ceremony performed in the open air. But the true spirit of the tea ceremony lies in the austere wabi style of serving tea, in which guests are invited to a chashitsu, a tea room modestly built in a garden. The guests enter the tea room garden where they are gradually brought to a tranquil state of mind, leaving the outside world behind.
The guests admire the masterful performance of the host and then take part in the ceremony themselves, tasting the delights of the tea, the climax of this unique ceremony.
お手前頂戴いたします。
どうぞ。
処分いたします。お手前頂戴いたします。
The tea ceremony provides us with a quiet drama in life. It ends when both the host and the guests have been spiritually united in appreciation of the tea and a moment of quiet reflection.